Hello there, everyone. It's Sunday night, and that means it's time for another episode of Explain Yourself. I'm here with my co host, Joey Galvez of Geek Collective, and we have some great characters here tonight with some fantastic books to show off. Joey, how's your week been, man?
Dude, it's been pretty awesome actually because in Arizona we can actually turn off our air conditioning for most of the day and we can enjoy the weather a little bit. Right now it's like sitting at 75 degrees outside, man, and I'm like, it is heaven. But there is one point in the day where it hits like 85, 80 to 89. You're like, all right, should we turn on the air conditioning yet? Other than that, because I see a lot of my friends out there, they're like, "Oh, first snow of the year," and I'm like, "Oh
Oh, yeah.
no, it's perfect and 75 degrees out here. It's sunny."
Yeah, Ohio got our friends in Cleveland got snow last week, or actually on Halloween, and we're just dealing with all our leaves up here. So that's
Yeah,
it's not too bad.
yeah.
When you don't have time to deal with it, it's kind of bad, but it sure
Mhm.
is nice to look at. I'll take it over any other type of weather problem.
I'm right there
100%.
with you, man. But other than that, it's been actually really fun talking about all these books. Tons of really cool Kickstarters have launched in the last week or two. We're going to be talking about a handful of these ones here. I have a couple of friends coming back that I've known for a little bit now. That the father and son team. We're going to be talking to Drew and Lee Ferguson. We're going to have a couple other people coming in, hopefully, and then some really cool stuff. And a couple of new books that I've actually not seen. So I'm just really excited to dig into this episode, man.
Me too. So let's bring in our guests. We've got Drew and Lee Ferguson, and we have Joseph Dews. Lee and Drew are working on a book called Maleficent Black, which is really cool looking. And Joey is working on a book called Super Heresy Showcase 1974. Both really cool projects, and we're excited to hear about it from you guys. So, Lee and Drew, let's start with you guys. Give us like the quick elevator pitch on Maleficent Black, and just kind of tell us like the sort of 30-second, minute long pitch for readers, and just a little bit more about the campaign.
Gotcha. So the quick pitch is it's a sci-fi cultist you really wish you didn't need. Maleficent Black. No matter what planet you're on, sometimes you look into the darkness and find it smiling back at you. There are a handful of specialists, experts, and idiots alike you could call to deal with that kind of thing. But only one of the names on that list keeps the dark and the light up at night. Only one of those names truly loves wading into the depths of whatever fresh hell they've discovered to go full blood and guts and cosmic screaming. Only one of those names truly understands the creatures she faces. The universe might not want the cursed occultist, but that doesn't mean the universe doesn't need her. And so begins the long, painful, torturous redemption of Maleficent Black.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
I love that.
And
That's
it's a
awesome.
great. We'll get a chance to look at this a little bit in a few minutes, but it's a great looking campaign. So we're excited to go into that in more depth. Joseph, tell us a little bit about Super Heresy Showcase.
Yeah, it's an anthology book. It's two stories of taking actual comic book heroines from the 1940s who are now in the public domain, and telling new stories with them, dealing with interdimensional threats and kind of playing with some of the tropes of the genre as they existed in the 1940s and the 1970s, mixing it with the whole relevance movement of comics and having everything flat colored and half-tone filtered, like looks like an older comic.
Yeah, and I've seen some of this. You definitely managed to capture a lot of that cool Golden Age feel. And if anybody's read my book, Scarlet Twilight, you'll know I'm a big fan of that stuff. So I want to take a little bit of a closer look at these campaigns. So Drew or Lee, if you want to bring up your campaign page and share it, we can kind of go through. People can see some of this great artwork and can get into a little bit more depth with the story and characters.
Okay, I hit share. It should be coming up here in a second. There we go. You guys see that?
There we go.
Nice. Okay.
There in a
So
second.
that's just a little short pitch there with our logo. We just got different art here. Some interior pages here. These are the first, I want to say, first 4 pages? The coloring on this, just dead absolutely. We went back and forth in the coloring of this over and over because the coloring really adds, I think, to the just setting you in the world in this book in particular. But just the bright neon lighting there, just absolutely, you just killed it on that.
Oh, yeah.
Guys in that statue, I love so
Oh, it's
dearly.
awesome.
I feel like a lot of Kickstarter books right now are doing these really gorgeous looking fluorescent colored, bright coloring books. It's such a cool thing that we can see right now, man. I'm so excited to see all this kind of stuff. The colors are like really really awesome in this thing, man. So tell us a little bit about that. I think um, that's one of the things that popped out to me. I don't know about you. I was looking through the stuff. I was like, the colors on this one is like really on point.
We're just always, I think the things that really hit us visually are like really bright, you know, like Tron or Speed Racer or like movies like that really have this visceral look to them that we really love. So we just wanted to bring that in. If you heard Sam and his Talking Gun, same deal. It's got kind of different, but it's got really vivid colors, and the color isn't just like there as the setting, but it's there to kind of set the mood a little bit too.
And then you guys did Sam and his Talking Gun. That one was red and white, right? Coloring.
Mostly, yeah, red, black, and white a lot, especially the violent moments. We did red.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Gary Frank cover.
And this Gary Frank, this is what caught my eye when Joey sent this campaign over. I'm like, is that a Gary Frank cover? Oh my god!
Yeah, it absolutely floored us when this came in.
Yeah, it's beautiful. All the artwork is. This is cool to see. But this book has such a great, and we'll get a little bit into the characters and kind of your guys' process because I'm interested in that too. But I think this one had such a distinctive visual identity, and I think that's something that stands out when you look at a lot of Kickstarter pages. You got like a cover by one artist, another artist, interior pages by somebody else. The logo is a little different. In this one, you just scroll down, you've got the same vibe coming across the whole thing. It feels consistent. I feel like somehow that promises a good story to me. It feels like the thing has been thought out and organized in a really intelligent way. So that really stood out. But you guys, so I think you worked on the story together and developed it.
Yeah, so we were tossing this around, and interject whatever you want here, Dad. I talk endlessly. But we've been tossing this around for a little over a year now. I feel like we got the opportunity. We wanted to do something, another new thing together, brand new, start fresh, and so we started this about a year ago, and it kind of snowballed from there to where we had the same document open. And we would just add things into it, and it got to the point where we didn't know whose idea this was or whose idea that was. It doesn't matter because it all just feels. All the ideas fit Maleficent perfectly. We knew we were on the right track with it. So we kind of had an idea what we wanted to do in the first issue. So I went out and I, kind of wrote the script. We brought it back and we workshopped the script back and forth a little bit. And then over the last few months, the art process has been going through, and now it's out to DC Hopkins for lettering.
Very cool.
Very cool. Yeah, I mean, it's so this is kind of, I guess, sci-fi with a little bit of a horror, element to it. And you told us a little bit about the character and that elevator pitch, but like, how did you start with the character on this, and how do you see her, just her identity, the type of hero she is, other people she's like in other stories? Like, what were you looking to do with this character?
I think the first words we said to each other was John Constantine in space, and that was where we started from. So it's kind of, we definitely wanted a bit of a broken character to start with, like someone who kind of works both directions, to the dark and to the light, but has something in them that wants to do good. They just might not always know how to do that, or might have lost their way at some point. So we wanted to play with that and try to figure out how to. Our favorite stuff is characters who kind of feel broken and you wonder if they can be redeemed. And then the process of trying to redeem them, that's sort of our favorite thing character-wise to do. So this is a good opportunity, I think, for us to try it at least.
Oh, that's obviously a really good angle with a lot of fertile story ground to cover. And I think just contrasting what you described there with all these colors, the far out situations, the bigger than life stuff, that's a good mix that really lands. So very cool stuff. So this is the first issue of Maleficent Black.
Yeah, yep. It's the first anyone's ever seen in Maleficent Black will be here in this Kickstarter.
Cool. And then do you have a lot more planned with this character? I'm assuming you probably do. But is this part of a bigger story? Is it like a mini series that's going to do 1 through 4 and get collected, or are you kind of just doing standalone, initial issues like that are just kind of a complete adventure?
We've always both admired how Mike Mignola tells Hellboy stories, where each one is kind of its own self-contained thing, but it all adds to a larger narrative as you go, and it reaches certain logical points along the way. So I think that's right now our plan. We would like to do this for a hell of a long time. We have a lot of ideas, but there's definitely an overarching place we want to get to with this.
Yeah, I think that's something that's gotten lost in any type of comics, be them Kickstarters, indie comics, or even kind of the mainstream stuff, is it's all kind of set arcs. It's a 12-issue arc, it's a 6-issue arc, 4 issues if you're in the indies, which is what I generally end up doing. But I think there's even if you're not going to have a complete story in each issue, even if you're just thinking about that and making sure there's enough cool stuff per issue, really I think adds to the satisfaction a reader gets from it. Honestly, I think it makes it a lot easier to write. But yeah. I'm glad to see when you've seen some of these projects that are just an issue and they're not issue 1 of 4, you kind of know you're going to get a good ride out of that. It's going to be a fun story. It's going to have seeds for future stuff, but it's going to be, if you look at a lot of the great TV from the 80s and 90s and kind of the golden age of television before Sopranos and all that started, which I love too, but you kind of knew you were going to sit down and watch the X-Files and get a really good hour of television, but also going to get some, some seeds planted for future episodes or the bigger stories. And that always kind of made things fun. When I go back and watch things like that, I'm always struck by how much satisfaction I get from watching something that's like, hey, this is just, you're going to get a beginning, middle, and end. Mm-hmm. You might get a few crumbs that are going to lead to a larger thing, but this is going to be a fun hour, half hour, whatever it is. I really like how that story structure tends to go. So definitely the Hellboy model is, I think, a good example of that in comics. They're not that long, but they really take you on that journey in a good way.
It allows a spontaneity in there a little bit. You can kind of go off the beaten path and do something fun, and it still counts. But then you can go back. Yeah.
Yeah, it lets you every now and then. And I think Hellboy's, again, a great example of this. You can just do kind of you can do a funny book. You can do things can be a little off, and it's not like, well, this doesn't fit into this arc, so I can't really have a good place for it. So I think that's something I'd love to see more from. I see a lot more of it in indie comics. I'd love to see more of it in the mainstream too, just because it's a nice way to interact with these characters, be they newer ones or ones we have a long-standing relationship with. I wanted to ask too a little bit. I think this might fall under the artwork. We talked about the color. The line work is obviously really beautiful. But it looks like you guys have done a lot of design work here, like almost the type of level of pre-production you'd see from a movie or an animated series. Was that a process you kind of did separately, or did you just do it kind of on the page and have a good idea of what it was going to be?
For me, at least on my part, I just write a lot of weird stuff in the script, and then Dad just kind of comes back and blows me away. Either, does what the script is thinking, or just completely kills it and does something new that I had not thought. Like this whole thing, the whole, floating castle in space with the tongue coming out and stuff, that was nowhere in the script, and it is beautiful. I love it so dearly. So a lot of it, from my end, I throw some stuff out there, but he absolutely just finds new balls to hit and knocks them out of the park.
Very cool. We had a cool comment here from Hyper Potato for you, Drew. It's like, do you plan to incorporate ghost corpses as discussed on Whatnot streams in your future stories?
Yeah. I can't talk a whole lot about certain things for fear of giving things away. But yeah, indeed.
Fair enough. So is this? I'm not familiar with that. What are if you can talk about it? What are the ghost corpses?
This is related to, a ghost in the issue here a little bit. So we've kind of got an idea of physical stuff that might be left from somebody who was around. If their ghost part is not going to have that. So if there were a ghost of this guy somewhere, he wouldn't have that arm.
Gotcha. Okay. Very cool. Sounds like that. I can see that being a plot point. Very cool. Yeah. And we have another comment here asking any shenanigans. I'm not sure exactly who this is for, but
always.
I can say never on my end, but maybe our guests feel differently. That's okay. Well, this looks cool, and I think we'll come back to it a little bit. But Joseph, I want to switch over to you if you can share your campaign. When we'll talk about some Golden Age superheroes, which I always love to do.
Okay.
I don't see it yet. I think it's.
You guys seeing it, or let's see?
Not yet. Let's give it another couple of seconds. If it doesn't show, I'll just share it for you, and you can tell me where to scroll.
Okay.
All right, I'll do that now.
All right. Yeah, I guess it didn't work.
Okay, so
there we go. Yeah. Okay. This is our
Yep.
fourth Super Heresies book and our third Super Heresy Showcase book. Basically, what we do is we take these public domain comic book heroes and give them new stories, and they are all self-contained stories, but they all take place in the same universe. So you don't have to read any of the other ones, but if you do, you'll get little hints about them being in the same universe, and there's kind of a meta plot. And then we have a gift there showing both of our covers. Our main cover was by Mike DiCarlo, who is a 4-decade veteran of comics.
Oh, I know who Mark DiCarlo is.
Yeah.
Big fan.
So he's done Batman. He was famously the inker that killed on the story that killed Jason Todd. He also was the inker on Omega Man #3, the first appearance of Lobo. He worked for Marvel, Valiant, Bongo Comics. Anyway, so we had him do this homage cover. It's an homage to Captain America 137 and Captain America and the Falcon facing off against Spider-Man. So we have our two heroines in the front, and our bad guy is the Plotter, who is a comic book writer who has discovered that everything he writes about is coming true in a different parallel world. And so he writes himself into the story so that he can go on a crime wave and prove that he is a superior crime writer. So it's very difficult for the hero to stop him because he has the powers of a god in the comic book world. So that's the first story, is 15 pages. And then the second story is about a superheroine who has been around since the 1940s. And you can go ahead and scroll down. That was our second cover too, by Summer Dale, who did us a little thirsty cover there. So that's the first story. It's basically an adaptation of a 1942 story. We change a bunch of stuff around and make it a little bit more meta. And then the second one is kind of a mix of this 1940s heroine, Super Ann, and then, within the story, she'd been around since the 40s, but in the 70s, she sort of becomes disillusioned and starts traveling across America to help people that she might have missed. And it's like a very Green Lantern, Green Arrow type of relevant early 1970s story. And she finds out that there are toxic waste monsters being emanated from the exhaust fumes of a motorcycle gang. Unwittingly, and so she has to figure out what's going on and stop them before they pollute the earth. And it's also was taking elements from some early 70s public domain Skywald comics, horror comics, Scream and Nightmare, as well as Hell Rider, which was a short-lived Skywald superhero comic. And so we kind of mix all the 70s stuff in there. There's like all that biker culture, relevance comics, environmentalism, and a little bit of the satanic panic in there. But we use these stories to kind of comment on how superheroes have affected the Western comics industry. Sort of, the way I like to think of it is it's sort of a something like The Boys or something where it's you take all the tropes, but instead of like shitting on them, we just kind of use them in different ways. And then also we have a companion volume where we reprint the first appearances of the characters that inspired ours.
Oh, cool.
And yes, we saw some of those pages. And then we also have all the previous Super Heresy issues. We have T-shirts for the first time. We go down a little bit. You see the T-shirt design. My youngest daughter wanted to be the model for that. It was a little bit big for her. And then the T-shirts I'm really excited about. David Jackson, over a course of a year and a half, he drew a bunch of these characters for me. Some of them we've used, some of them we haven't yet. So in some ways it's kind of a preview of upcoming stuff. But I just put all those together on the same shirt and put Mystery Men Comics #1 in the background with our logos. Winston Jordan, who who just passed away, was our logo designer for most of these logos. And yeah, so we are also giving away free indie comic PDFs. We hit certain backer milestones. So yeah, you got any questions? Or
I have a few questions. I want to get back to Mike DiCarlo because I'm a huge fan of his. I've ever since I read, I think of these issues you could get at Walmart that were packaged in threes, and he was the inker on most of them, and the other ones were Tom Mandrake doing pencils and inks. But the stuff, I'm a big Jim Aparo fan. I have ever since I saw his first stuff. But the ones that Mike DiCarlo inked were always my favorite. I would go to the first page and see if Aparo was inking himself. If it was the later stuff where it was kind of a chalky black line sort of thing. But that era where it was like Jason Todd kind of going off the rails was like the best Jim Aparo stuff I've ever seen. So I was really excited to see you had him doing a variant. And I do want to get back to that a little bit. But I wanted to ask you about all these superheroes. I'm really interested in using public domain superheroes for some of my upcoming projects. And as I looked at this picture that's your t-shirt design, a lot of these guys do look familiar. Some of these are adaptations of existing Golden Age characters that are in the public domain. Is that correct?
yeah. We got let's see, Black Orchid, Madame Fatale, Dr. Miracle, Dash Dartwell, King of Darkness, Duke of Darkness. You got Gravity Girl is kind of our version of Bullet Girl. She's the one in the first story. Super Ann stars in our second story. We got our version of the Wizard named La Hecasera. There's like 18 characters in there. But yeah, they're all from comic books that are now in the public domain. Some of them we've changed significantly. Others we have changed slightly. Some of them we have really not changed too much at all. What's really cool to think about these characters is that a lot of them, they didn't have much of a run, so they weren't really explored. They didn't get to grow up. They didn't get to grow old, and I think exploring that is really interesting. Some of them never had origins. Some of them never had real names. Some of them never had code names. Some of them never had costumes. Just filling in all those blanks, for some of these characters, they had so much potential, but they just didn't really hit with the audience.
Yeah, I mean, some of this stuff was so fly by night back then that you'd see a character in a backup of something and it would just never pop up again. Have you read that? It was something called the Next Issue Project that Image did. I want to say 10 years ago or something like that.
Yeah, I have not read that. I've heard of it though. But yeah, I've seen some of the covers and stuff where they just took previous comics that were canceled and like did the next issue of them.
Yeah,
that seems like a really cool concept to me.
Yeah, it was. Some of it was hit or miss, like a lot of the old comics were. But it was a cool, I think, an attempt to really go with where the fact they were picking up from what hypothetically would have been the next issue was cool. But they also took like a very, what I guess at the time, now we call sort of meta look at it, and kind of explore a little bit of the absurdities these characters had, or things that when you read it now they seem weird that they just did in a certain way. But yeah, I've always just been a huge fan of those old characters. And I'm hoping to figure out if I can use a few of the good ones for the next volume of Scarlet Twilight, but still doing some research there. But I've seen a lot more people, and I'm sort of hoping I can get this book rolling in time before everybody takes all the good ideas. But I'm seeing a lot more people like yourself doing Golden Age stuff, and sometimes specifically using characters. So I think there is a good groundswell of people looking for looks at these old characters, whether they're really faithful, whether they're updated takes, they kind of take an ironic look at it. I do think there's something cool about those old comics, even if they don't totally work in the way that we're accustomed to reading comics every month now. There is something there that's cool. There's a good atmosphere, and I'm really happy to see a lot of other creators trying to plumb those depths and see what cool stuff is down there. I did want to ask you. Go ahead.
It's really fun. Yeah, go ahead.
I did want to ask you about, are you doing the artwork for these, or tell us a little bit about your art team, aside from the cover?
We have two different stories. So we have two different line artists. Our first one is Kyron Silva, who has done Saw the Lightning Wielder, has done Shaman's Destiny, a bunch of comics. He's also a writer and an artist. So yeah, he did our first story called The Plotter. And then our second story was by Raul Orte Crespo, who has done a bunch of comics for us. Maybe most famously Dr. Orange or Halloween Horror Story. And Jerome Rapage, I did our flat colors for them. And then I just put them under a halftone filter. So they look it's kind of mutes the colors almost. So it looks like a little older. So I think it looks pretty cool. Some people are going to be like, "Oh, the colors. It doesn't look, you don't have the renders. It's not, whatever." But yeah, I think it looks really cool, and it reminds me of when I was growing up, and you can get comics at the 7-Eleven and stuff.
Yeah, that's the same stuff I used to do, and I think actually I knew a guy that I worked with when I was in Cleveland who was like online friends with one of the guys that did the pre-press sort of stuff for the Marvel trades, and they would really go back and forth because at the time they were printing on the super glossy paper with the same colors that they had printed on back in the day, but those were intended for newsprint where they'd soak in and really get muted. And so a few times they'd either mute the colors or print them on different paper so they would kind of flatten out a little bit. But people they kind of rebelled. They said, no, we like it on the glossy paper, just being super garish. And they were kind of surprised, as I would be. But I think people have kind of gotten it now. It's people like, yeah, wasn't newsprint a little bit different? And that may be due to like the fact that people collect comics so much more now, and I think you have an appreciation of that older stuff. And besides it just being a vague memory, they can kind of remember what was cool about it. And as I'm looking at this page in particular, I wanted to mention, you've even got, I don't know if everybody can see it on here, but like you even have these things where it looks like the blacks didn't kind of all soak in, which looks very retro and very cool.
Yeah. The halftone filter does that in some cases, I just love the way these look when they end up coming out. I do the lettering on them. I even vary up the lettering a little bit just to make it look like, there was a period like in the 70s where they were told, the letterers were told, like, get the letters out of the way of the art. So they were trying to push everything into the corners when you did dialogue bubbles. So I did that a lot in the 70s story, just trying to put everything in a corner. It's not always possible, obviously, but yeah, it's interesting because you see a lot of indie comics recently where they just avoid the corners entirely, and they did always want to have complete ovals, But yeah, I did pretty much the opposite in this one, and in some of our previous ones too, where everything in the corner, and so like the art is kind of in the center of everything.
Yeah, no, it's definitely, it has the feel of those old pages, which is really fun to see. Good stuff. Yeah. So the link, this campaign is got 4 days to go. It's got a little bit to go before it gets to the goal. And if you want to check it out, the link is in the description. If you're watching this on YouTube, head over to Kickstarter and find Super Heresy Showcase 1974. If you're a big fan of this Golden Age stuff, and especially revisiting those types of things with, through the eyes of a different audience, I think you'll really like this one. So we're gonna kind of just go back and forth from here on out. But I wanted to go back to Lee and Drew a little bit and kind of just ask a little bit more about your characters and like you mentioned John Constantine, and I think there's some pretty obvious sci-fi stuff that we've seen there that probably influenced you, but can you kind of tell us, like, was there like something that you saw or like, oh, we want to do, we really like this part of this story or the visuals we saw on this that kind of inspired you to kind of put all this stuff together?
You want to start with this one?
You guys can hear me now, right?
Yeah, his mic was broke.
Yeah. I think one of the first things we said was a castle in space.
Yeah, it's the castle hangs in space. Yeah.
Yeah. So it kind of grew from there, and God, I don't know what I should or shouldn't say as far as.
And it's tough because it kind of just was all very spontaneous. Like we I don't know, we watch stuff all the time together. We talk about it all the time, enough to where I'm sure I drive my mom crazy with it. But so we both know where we're coming from very easily, So there's a shorthand that we have. But yeah, like there's sort of just some Hellboy, some Flash Gordon, John Constantine thrown into a little blender, and just shooting out into Mallison. I feel like with just a little bit of something unique there. I think too with her.
Yeah, we both love a lot of the supernatural, like Hellboy kind of stuff. But then I also grew up reading like these big collections of the Alex Raymond, Flash Gordon, and all. And so if you can find a way to bring those together, it's worth doing.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I'm a big one of my big entry points into comics was the Al Williamson reprints of the Star Wars strips, and so that, of course, I'd be collecting everything I'd find about him and the sketchbooks and stuff, and of course, he would just talk about how much he loved Alex Raymond, and that got me into all that stuff. So I spent probably the first 3 years of art school just trying to draw with those brush strokes and all that stuff, because it was just those are kind of like that old Golden Age stuff, which of course it is kind of from that era. Like there's something there that even if the pacing and everything that you're used to seeing doesn't work in the same way that comics now kind of give you that sort of modern pacing, there's just so much there in the design, the draftsmanship, just the imagination that was going on. It's so cool. Yeah. And I think I've said this before, and I think I just said it about Joe's project too. There's just a lot of cool stuff to be done with trying to find ways to mix those together and really make it work. But yeah, that's kind of how I break a lot of my stories too, is I have just a few ideas or like some visual, like, oh, there's this giant cathedral on a city street or something, and this is happening. Like those images just kind of pop into my head, and then I don't usually run with them at that point, but there'll be like a few other things. I'm like, maybe this idea and that idea have something to do with each other, and it just kind of mashes together.
You kind of like find it along the way, it kind of is organic along that way. It doesn't feel like you're making a thing. It feels like you're finding it. Yeah.
I mean, in my case, it's a lot of times I do think of like a cool visual, like a castle in space or just something. And of course that kind of writes itself. Obviously, why is there a castle in space? What does it look like? It does kind of tell a lot of the story visually, which is cool to see. And I think that's what makes this campaign look so cool, aside from the fact that the character is really well designed and the artwork is really solid. A lot of these things, you just see them, and you really can get the kind of, while this is very high tech, I mean, something about the design of this ship has a little bit of this kind of, I'd say 1920s nouveau look to it. And you kind of do think like, okay, there's going to be kind of a horror element to this. I can sort of see that. So I think this is an example of like, gosh, this artwork's so great, and the design and everything about it really, really work so well together.
It's fun with that genre blend. You can go as much either direction as you want. There's so many times like you're doing a hard sci-fi and you have a thing, but you can't do it because it's not a sci-fi idea. But with this, we can go back and forth as much as we want with it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's good. There's obviously a lot of successful space horror stuff out there, but I don't feel like there's a ton of like super natural space horror in the way that like Constantine type stuff does, which is definitely fun to see a lot of. And I love this guy's got kind of like a Wally Wood 50s spacesuit on, which I also always like to see. But yeah, this is just really cool stuff. Lee, can you tell us a little bit like your art process? Are you all digital, or in like how do you do your work?
This was all digital, yeah. I draw in a sketchbook, whenever I can, but for this, just because there were so many elements that like I would put it down and then redesign, or like I think I did her tattoos a few different times. So it would have taken me probably another half a year to get this thing done if I hadn't been working digitally, So, there's some pluses and minuses to working digitally, but we'll probably be able to get more books out a year if I keep it up digitally, So.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I'm all digital too, and I like just this tattoo. Like, yeah, there's no way I would be drawing that every time. Absolutely not. That is what computers are for. But I love some of this pattern you've got here too in the coloring. Like I have a pet peeve about the halftone patterns in comics now. Like sometimes they work really well. Sometimes I'm just like, especially over computer coloring that's really vivid and bright, and they try and do some rendering on top of it. I'm like, oh my God, that's horrible. Somebody needs to stop people from doing that. There should be a warning in Photoshop.
It can flatten out a rounded image really easily.
He's talking about the stuff that I send him. I'm like, hey, look at how's this? He's like,
no.
let's
No, I was talking actually in mind a very very popular artist who does the biggest franchise out there now, and it's beautiful artwork. But I feel like when the colorist is going over the halftones, which look great in black and white, there should be like a little dialogue box, like the Windows paperclip bot guy or
Yeah.
something. It says like, "Are you sure you want to try and render over that halftone pattern? Looks like you're trying to do something dumb." But what I like about this is why I was getting there is I love how you've kind of just used that as part of the color. That's what looks really good, and I think you get the retro halftone feel. You incorporate that in your mind, people love it, but it's also not there kind of looking really muddy or charcoaly, I guess is the best way I can think of to describe it when it doesn't work. So
Yeah, I did a
love to
lot
see
of
that.
sketching before we started this,
Mhm.
but there was still the first 4 or 5 pages went through 2 or 3 passes. Where it was just, it'll be nice to start the second book because at least Malice and her ship and suit and
Mhm.
all that will be designed, but she's in a completely different place, which will need designed again.
Yeah.
You know, so
Yeah, I usually take. I mean, I'll spend so much time designing some things, and then some things I'm just like, the first time it shows up on a page, that's when I'm going to figure it out, and I will
Mhm.
just have to live with it if it doesn't work later, or find a way to make it work. But this, like, that's what I asked you about, the kind of if you had a concept art stage, because some of these designs were like really strong. I think work in a lot of different contexts. The ship primarily, and then obviously her uniform. Just like, boy, it looks like there was almost a team of people putting together concept art for this book before you sat down and drew it, because it's really it all has its own vibe. Like the spacesuits are very different than her look. The ship is really cool, and I think one thing that's cool about it that I was going to compliment on you on / ask about was it almost looks like the type of thing that's designed for animation, and that you've got these broad wing colors here. You've got the lights that are going to just be, this is a design that works if it's a tiny thing on the page. It's a design that looks really cool on the splash page where it's taking up all of 2 pages. And that's why I thought, like, boy, this was a really well designed comic.
oh, thank you.
That's something we talk about is things being designed so they can be recognizable in like a silhouette.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think that's important.
The-
I have
the
nothing to do
George
with it
Lucas-
clearly, but he
The
does.
George Lucas, like, if it can't be designed, if it can't be recognized in 2 seconds, it's got to go back to
Yeah.
the
Well,
drawing board.
Romita
Yeah.
always used to say you should be able to identify every character by their outline, by their silhouette, and so that sticks with you, So I'd like to think, I mean, we went through 20 different pages of designs for
Oh, yeah.
her,
Oh,
her
wow.
jacket, especially.
Mhm. And the color scheme, exactly.
Mhm.
Little things changing. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I always think it's important that your characters can be identified by silhouettes, because one day you'll be tired and you don't want to draw anymore. You can just use
Yeah, right.
silhouettes, which I think is always good. But it's a good storytelling. I mean, it's one of those things that animation can do as well, but comics do really well. Is you can just have a silhouette. You can have, and you can play with it. Like you can have just Spider-Man's eyes in a black silhouette, and it still works, but it looks like he's really mad, and it wouldn't really happen in reality. But it's one of those things you can do in comics that if you give yourself the right space to work with a design that's versatile, you can do all those cool extra things and that take advantage of sort of visual comic book logic, and it can really make story moments shine.
Well, that's the thing. If you're doing comics, you might as well take advantage of all the things
Yeah.
you can do in comics that don't work in TV and movies and novels. Like take advantage of all your tools.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's one of the things that I was surprised by when I was I'd written a series before Scarlet Twilight that was pretty traditional in the sense of like how dialogue and things like that were handled. When I was doing my Golden Age throwback thing, I found there was a lot of things I could take advantage of. Like thought balloons just aren't going to be weird to people. I can deal with them a little bit ironically, but I can also just use them to move the story along a lot faster. And say, like, I think I'd said the example to a few people was like, these old comics would not show Batman going through, he'd go to an office, he'd look around, he'd go through a few drawers, but then they just say, eventually Batman found the clue and now he's fighting the Joker, and that's what you wanted to see. But there are like visual tools and writing tools, I think, that are specific to comics that logistically make things so much easier, but they're also just more fun to read and kind of let you have control over your pacing. And I think that doing your artwork that way really, like I said, gives you so many options to take advantage of all those things. I've seen way too many comics lately that are just like super reference. Everything's widescreen. It's almost like storyboards, and And I think people are getting kind of bored of that and wanting to see comics be comics again. So that is what I think this does very well. But guys, we'll kind of go back and forth here, but tell us a little bit about the tiers you're offering and kind of the things you wanted to have in your campaign.
So we just put it like a nice, cheaper digital option for just people who wanted to try it out, or people who don't want to pay for shipping, especially overseas. The shipping is bonkers. But yeah, otherwise it's just a pretty standard. Like, you know, you get your standard cover for 10, line art for 15, Gary Frank cover variant for 20, his line art for 25, and then we've got different bundles. Like any of these covers can be an add-on with whatever package you want, and all the Lee Ferguson covers will come signed by both of us.
Oh, cool. Cool.
And they have a remark tier, which I think there are 4 slots left of currently. I think there's 4 slots left for at 65, and then the original art tier, which is like a original art, not commissioned, but a little 1-page Maleficent, shot basically, for $250. But then add-on wise, we've got the script just for $2, and I'm writing a prose short story to go along with this, which is also a $5 add-on.
Very cool. Very cool. If I can switch back to you, Jeff, real quick, take us through a little bit of your kind of all your tiers and stuff. We talked a little about your covers, obviously, and some of the add-ons for the indie comics bundles, but let's get to the tiers and kind of take us through, the offerings there.
Okay. Yeah. So we have just a basic PDF tier, $5 for that. You just get the story. And a couple of vintage ads, I think, and then we have sort of a tier that gives you a PDF of the companion, which is a reprint plus the regular stories, and then the next one after that is the print cover A, where it includes shipping, PDF, and print cover A, which is the Mike DeCarlo cover. Then we have a giant PDF where it's, I think, 156 pages, and it gives you the story, commentary pages on the story. So all the story pages are reprinted with commentary on them. But you also have the regular story, so the commentary is not in the way to read that. And then also you have the original scripts. So that's just kind of a bigger PDF. Yeah, and then we have one where you can just get cover B plus the PDF, and then go on to the next one. So the next one is basic plus the companion edition, in print, both in print, and that also includes domestic shipping and the PDFs, and one of the PDFs. So go on to the next one, and so the next one is a PDF catch-up. So you get PDFs of all the Super Heresy Showcase companions, all the Super Heresy showcases, and the original Super Heresies. So go to the next one. The next one you get cover A and B plus the PDF plus domestic shipping.
Good stuff. And again, anybody watching this now or later on YouTube, in the description, all these campaigns are right down there. So you can head over to Kickstarter and back these campaigns. But guys, these have been awesome books, and it was really cool to talk about them. And I was really excited for this week's episode because this is just a lot of cool artwork and a lot of stuff I love talking about. But Joey, I think we have a couple other books that we wanted to kind of go through. Let's talk about those.
Yeah, so excuse me. So right now we have Don't Push the Red Button that is live. We are just about 50%. And what this one is a 100 plus page anthology. It's got a ton of really great blockbuster creators like Travis Gibb, Mario Candelaria. We have a Liana Kangas cover. We also have a Francesca Fantini cover. Francesca has a story in this too, so you're gonna see some really cool, gorgeous interior art as well. This one was curated by Oscar. He is of Lima, Peru, and he thought about this one night when he was talking with his girlfriend, and they were talking. They were newly they had just recently got together, and they were just talking things out, and this idea came up where They're like, well, what if you pushed a button, you got a lot of money, and but somebody close to you had to die, kind of a thing. And they were like, oh, that could be a comic book, because he was, just wanting to his toe into getting into comics, and he was writing a story. And as he was writing that story, he was kickstarting it, and this one happened. He kind of just wanted to develop something that was cool to incorporate tons of other really great creators, because he was in that space and saw all the, when you're kickstarting a book, you see all these amazing creators that either want to help you out and like do cross promotions and go on shows like this together with. So he wanted to kind of incorporate that into a comic book, and the way he thought that was the best way, was to curate a really cool looking anthology. So he did that with this prompt to give people the question to, what would you do if you were able to receive a ton of money by pressing a button, but somebody close to you would have to die. Excuse me. And so he put out the prompt out there, and then asked people to submit. Over 100 plus working creators like submitted their work to it. So he had to like whittle it down to like 11 stories, which is nuts. And then because he had a bunch of people submitting to this, he couldn't pass up on some of these stories because they were so great, and they were from some really great creators. So we're gonna have a tier. Once we fund, we're gonna probably open up some mystery tiers where we're gonna get some extras and things of that nature, and we're gonna unlock some really cool new rewards. But yeah, this is really cool. And then right now, Mario Candelaria, he is doing a little giveaway of his own. So if anybody wanted to go and check out what he's got going on, he's got some of his own work that he's giving away, because he just wanted to donate that to the cause. So if you guys check out his on his Twitter page, he's got a prompt out there for everybody how they can submit and all that good stuff. So check that out. I think it's a signed trade paperback of Killchilla. So if you guys are down for Killchilla trade paperback signed, and you want to win that, go to his page on Twitter and check it out. And he's running a really cool giveaway. So let's get this thing funded, right? Because this is one of those ambitious campaigns, but it's such a great story. I love the way, like, the whole thought process behind it. Me and Ben have been working on this project a little bit too. This front cover here, along with Francesca Fantini art, as both mine and Ben's design work here. So we're really invested in this thing. We really believe in this project. So we really would love if everybody can go out there and push it out, or just to share, share, comment, do whatever you can to help this one get over the finish line. This is a really gorgeous looking book.
Yeah, the great artwork. There's some great teams that have done a lot of other stuff, so the quality I think is going to be there, and the covers are great, the preview art's great, and like Joey said, just to echo it, it's a really fun concept. I think you can see working in a lot of different genres very well. So I think it's got something for everybody, and it's all from some all-star creators. Yeah,
and one really cool thing was with this is that before the campaign had even launched, they received Project We Love. They also received Witch Starter, because it was during the month of October that it was created, and it had to do with the supernatural and the horror themes. And then on top of it, there was a moment where I was like, you know what, I saw that Kickstarter does this really cool forward fund, and there's some really cool grants on there. If you guys go to Kickstarter and look up all the funds and stuff like that, you can find a really cool a grant that you can sign up for. You just follow the prompts that they give you to sign up, and we were able to receive a forward fund grant for this Kickstarter, which is really huge, and it kind of gave us this really nice bump. So we got some really gorgeous looking badges as well to go with this one. We got a Witch Starter, a Projects We Love one, and a forward fund badge. So and we're getting really close to 50% funded on this one. So people are really interested in seeing this one getting getting into the hands of readers.
Absolutely. It's like I said, great book. We've gotten to see a little bit of the behind the scenes stuff there. So yeah, this is a fun one. I think looking forward to seeing this one make its march to 10K.
Definitely. And then we have a couple of them that are in pre-launch phase right now. We have Karsus, which is a new horror, supernatural horror book from Brian Hawkins. He's got a new production company that he's going to be releasing a ton of really great horror books. So if you guys really love like the Vineyard or Black Cotton, some of the team that are involved in those books are going to be launching this Kickstarter. So this one's going to be coming up here in the next few weeks. So check it out. Gorgeous looking book as well. Nathan Kelly is the artist on this one. So great looking stuff that says follows a paranormal investigator who becomes entangled in this mystery where he's called to Thompson Pass, Alaska, in this frigid cold community where they find a body and they have no idea what happened to this person. So they come in and some craziness happens. So this one's in pre-launch right now, about 48 followers. We need to get 100 followers. That would be great, right? So if you guys are on Kickstarter, check this one out. Click that notify me on launch.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was looking at this one a little bit the other day too. It's got like, I'm a huge Matt Wagner fan, and this artwork was just like right up that alley. A great atmosphere. It's a great setting, and really solid story and art. So definitely want to check this one out. In fact, I'm looking at them getting the rest of the pages to us just to look at because I just want to read.
Oh yeah, and we are because we are sorry, my kids, they don't want to go to sleep. So we're lucky enough to be working with this team on the back end of stuff, and because we're working with them as their PR reps, and we're working with the project management stuff. So while we're doing all this stuff and we see these pages coming in and they're so gorgeous right now, we're waiting on lettering on a handful of pages, and I'm just really excited to kind of see the letters and see the process kind of come through. Like that's the funnest thing to do. Like you see the artwork, and then when you send it out for the lettering, and those first lettered pages come in, and you're just like, oh my gosh, this is freaking cool. I know Drew, look, I see your face over there. How do you feel when you see that, man?
Yeah, it's very special once you see it lettered. Like this is actually like this is a comic book now. You know, like we got words. It's great, right?
That's exactly. You're like, oh, I can read what this is. Now I know what they're saying. But that's one of the best things though, right? With when you send things out, like I always heard a handful of really great creators say this. Like you want to be able to look at a page without any words and know exactly what they're doing, right? I think this is one of the books that I've seen like most pages without any words, and I'm like, I already know what's going on. And I feel like if they 100%. give me words, I mean, like, man, that is not how it happened in my head.
Actually, I'm not making this up. As we were just saying, like, I thought that maybe I'd seen the letters and I wasn't sure if I had or not, but the story was so clear, I really can't remember if I did or not.
Right. And that's, I love that. I love that when you can see that.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a good one. Like I said, I'm a big Matt Wagner fan. This art has a lot in common with that. So I was digging it. But other than that, I think we have a little bit of cool Geek Collective news to share as well.
Yeah. Right now. So if you guys, we are, I guess we're going to announce it because we have been working with Gemini Mailer, a mailing supply, for quite some time now. They have recently sent us out an email, and we are now officially a Gemini Mailing Supply partner, affiliate partner. So if you guys head on over to GeminiMailingSupply.com and you use Geek Collective 10 at checkout, you guys get 10% off on your till. We are huge advocates of Gemini mailers here. They are the best out there. Like we've talked to so many creators, and yes, there are other mailers out there, but I feel like maybe I'm biased because we're getting paid to do this, but I am going to tell you guys that they are far superior over any other mailer out there. I swear by Gemini mailers.
Absolutely. And I've had books show up damaged, or I had some of my books when I was using a different fulfillment place that kind of went out, and they were saying, "Hey, this was screwed up," and then they sent me the package, the art, the picture of the package. I'm like, "Oh, well, I can see why this happened," and kind of had some egg in my face because I assumed they were going out with Geminis. And I think the best thing you can say is if something does happen, somebody sees that, they know you at least took all the steps you could to get that book to them in the condition it ought to be.
This is one of those mediums, right? That it's a visual medium, it's a collector's medium, right? So you want to make sure that you are giving, like you want to make sure that shipping, you don't skimp on the shipping a little bit there. Like I don't know if that's really bad to say in a group setting like this, right? But I feel like as a person who purchases Kickstarter books, like when I get a book in a really good mailer and I'm like, oh, I know my book is going to be clean and pristine, especially the collector side. Like, look, I got all these books on the wall, man. These things are all pristine. Like they're all near mint, dude. Like I don't want anybody to mess up my book, right? And I feel like if I see a Gemini in the mail, I don't even question it. I already know it's going to be nice and clean.
Absolutely. And I was surprised when I started doing my Kickstarter because I'm not actually a big collector. I mean, most of my comics have had a sandwich sitting on them at some point, as bad as that might be to admit. I've just, as long as I can read it, as long as the artwork's, I'm cool with it. And I really found when I kind of got into this world of the crowdfunding and stuff, like people really want to have like a few copies of something. They want to be in good shape. And that was an education for me. So it's good to be able to respond to that. That's if somebody wants to support my comic, I want to make sure I'm getting them all the things they want from it that I can get them. So
definitely
good to do. Absolutely. And that also is in the description below the links to all these great books. So that is there to copy and paste if you're heading over to Gemini Comic Supply.
Yeah, we just got a couple minutes left, but before we head out, we do want to mention that Geek Collective is now a full service comic book creative studio. So we help creators anything from concept to shelf and everything in between. If you guys are looking for artists, interior artists, cover artists, letterers, writers, trailers, we like that right now. Me and Ben are working on several trailers for comic creators. And those are like the hot commodity right now. So and it's such an amazing thing because a really great made or like well-made trailer can do a really huge service for your book. So I'm not just saying that because I got the guy who makes them right here next to me. But
it'd be awkward if you didn't say something nice. I can step out if people want to be assured that we're being honest.
If you guys are looking for some work and you guys want to help cut out some of the time that you're dealing with the business side of things when you should really feel like, I know like sometimes Ben's like, I really would love more time to have my head down and do some art for my own self rather than doing some work and doing business side of stuff. So we will help you with that. If you guys will help you guys take some of that stuff off of your plate while you can have some time to put your head down and do some work. Just hit us up, head on over to geekcollective.net or hit us up, email us at info@geekcollective.net and ask some questions about our services and we can get back to you and see what we can do for you. Right now we're working on, we have two teams that we're going to be working with some giveaways right now because it's Christmas time, right? And who doesn't love getting free stuff? Like literally, we're going to give you guys some free stuff away here very soon. So make sure you guys are checking out @_Geek Collective on X, Twitter, everywhere else. So keep an eye on that. Keep an eye on my social media because we're going to be running some really cool giveaways. We're hopefully going to be giving some stuff away for the kids and stuff like that too. So make sure that you guys are checking that out. That's all I got. What you got, man?
That's all for me, guys. I want to thank you for coming on. It was a lot of fun to check out these books. It's a lot of fun. I mean, I love science fiction. I love Golden Age stuff. So it's always fun for me to go through and talk to other creators that are kind of exploring the same territory. So I guess that's all I've got. That'll do it for this week. I want to thank our guests again for coming on the show and sharing their books with us. I want to let everybody know, if you're watching this now or later, come back next week, Sunday night, and we're going to have some more great comics to talk about. Have a great week and good night. Ending. You have a closer?